Hi, everyone. In this video, I want to just give you a quick introduction to APA formatting. Now, if you've done a lot with APA and you're very comfortable with it, this is probably a video that you can skip. But if you're a little uncomfortable, if you've never done much with APA, or you just want a quick review, definitely watch this video. So just a quick reason, quick justification why we want to use any kind of formatting, APA or otherwise, a few reasons. So number one, this helps us support our view. If you just say, if I tell you that the sky is made out of chocolate, I've got to be able to back that up somehow. People can just talk any kind of crazy thing they want to with no evidence, and so this is a way for us to bring in evidence from outside that supports whatever claim that we're trying to make. And to build off of that, it lets other people go and say, okay, he said that according to the CDC, the sky is made out of chocolate. Now they can look at whatever information that you put forth, the way that you put it there, and go and see if that's actually what it said. And a lot of times, if you look into some of the claims that people make, if you go look at the evidence that they're using to make some of these claims, a lot of times you'll find that it doesn't say exactly what people say that they claim that it says. And so it's good to be able to track down the original source and check things out for yourself. And finally, we want to give credit to other people when they've done hard work, when they've done research to discover something. We don't want to just steal other people's ideas. We want to say, hey, it's actually this other person who figured this out, and kind of give credit to them. So we're trying not to steal other people's work. So when do you want to cite things? This is something a lot of people get confused about. You want to cite something that's a fact. Never cite your own personal opinion. If I say I think that the sky is pretty, I don't have to cite that. But if I say, if I say that this disease develops in this certain way, I wasn't born knowing that, so I need to be able to show where I got that information. So if it's something that's called common knowledge, if I say the sky is blue, I don't need to cite that because pretty much anyone who's been born can tell that the sky is blue. But if I say that this particular virus, if I say that COVID is caused by the virus SARS-V2, not everyone is born knowing that. No one is born knowing that. So you need to be able to back that up and cite where you got that information from. If there's findings from research. So if I say that so they, scientists found that eating chocolate makes you smarter. Yeah, that's something that came from some kind of study somewhere. And I need to say where I got that information so someone can back it up. If I say, I think chocolate makes you smarter, that's my own opinion. So that's something I don't need to cite if I came up with it. Now, if it's a statistic, saying that 99% of people who eat chocolate will have a heart attack, which is not true. But if I say something like that, I need to say where I got that statistics from. So if I say, however many people have this disease out of the population, or what percent of people are going to have a certain complication, that's something I need to be able to cite where it came from. Now, if I'm interpreting that, if I say, in one sentence, 50% of people are overweight. That's a fact. That's the statistic I need to cite. And then if I go and say, this obviously creates a big problem for our healthcare system, that's my opinion. And so I don't need to cite that. But then I want to go and back it up and say, this is why, because people who are overweight maybe have a higher chance of having these health conditions that require care. And so then I want to go and cite, those kinds of facts. But if I say, if I say, for example, COVID is stressing our healthcare system right now, that's not something, that's my opinion or my interpretation. I don't need to cite that. But then I need to say, we have this many visits in the last month. That's something I would need to cite. Now, if you take a direct quote from somebody, then you definitely need to cite it. If you quote word from word what somebody else said, you need to say who said that and put that citation there. And same thing, if it's somebody else's idea. If I say that gravity is keeping the earth in orbit around the sun. That's not my idea. I didn't come up with that. I need to cite, Newton or whoever did come up with that. But if I come up with my own creative idea, yeah, that's something I don't need to cite. So what kind of sources do you want to cite? Journals, books, websites. These are the places that you're probably going to be getting information for most of your nursing courses, and definitely for this class. And just to go back, actually, so presentations, you can also cite, if I say something in a lecture and you want to go back and cite that, or cite the PowerPoint slide, you can cite that as well. And I'll try to put an example in somewhere of how to do that. So where do you want to put your citation? First off, you've got to put it in the text. So if I say that, this percent of people have this disease, I want to put my source right at the end of that sentence, or right in that sentence where I said it, not at the end of the paragraph, not at the end of the paper, because then you leave it up to the reader to have to go back and figure out which source matches up with which piece of information. So right when you mention something, that's when you want to cite it, right at that sentence, not at the end of the paragraph, not anywhere else. And then, so we're going to put something brief there that just says where we got that information. And then at the end, we're going to have something in more detail that lets the reader, if they want to know where to find that information, where they can go find it. So let's look at some examples. The basic format for doing this, if you're citing something with just one source, or just one author. So you want to put the name of the author and the year of the publication, specifically the last name of the author, at the end of the sentence where you cited it. So in this example, you can see NAVA 2021. This says that NAVA published something in 2021, and that's the information. That's where we got the information in this sentence from. Now, there's another way to do this that some people like to do because it flows a little bit nicer, is you can say, according to so-and-so, like according to NAVA, according to the CDC, according to whoever. And then when you do it that way, instead of putting it at the end of the public, or at the end of the sentence, you put the, according to whoever it was, you put the year of that publication, the year that information was published, right there after that person's name or after that organization's name. And then you go on with your sentence, and you don't have to put anything at the end there. A big mistake that I see a lot of people make with APA when they're first starting out is they'll put the first and last name, or they'll put the last name and initials when they're citing in the text like this. Only do the last name. Don't put anything else except for the last name in the text. Later on at the very end, you're going to be able to give a little more information. But in the text, we don't want to put too much because that distracts the reader from the point that we're trying to make. So we're kind of trying to keep it short and simple here. Now, let's say that you have you cited two authors. You got information from two different sources for this point that you're trying to make. So what you'll do is you'll put them both at the end, and you're going to do it in alphabetical order according to their last name. So Yankee, that name starts with L. That's going to be first. Then you're going to put a semicolon to show that it's a new source now. And then you're going to put the author of the second person. And so that's how you're going to do it if you've got two sources like that. And yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Now, if you have the other way to do it, if we're going to try to do it like we were before, is you can say according to NAVA, put the year there, and Yankee, and then put the year there. Then you can do it that way. What you don't want to do, and you'd be tempted to do this because it's the same year, you don't want to say according to Nava and Yankee, and then just put the year right there to save space. That's going to imply that these two people wrote this thing together, that you're citing one source and they're both the authors. That's not what you want to do. You need to separate those out. So this is a bit tricky. I might not do this style if I have multiple sources for a certain piece of information. I would probably stick with this way here. And it's good to have, just an aside, it's good to have multiple sources to back up what you're saying. because the more sources you have, it kind of adds more credibility. If you just say this one person, but everyone else disagrees with that person, then that's kind of cherry picking. So the more people kind of agree with the point and have shown it to be true, the stronger your argument or your point is going to be. So let's say that you have a source with more than one author. And this is kind of what I was getting at in that last example there. So if you have two authors, then what you're going to do is you're going to put both their names right next to each other. And really key point here, you want to put the names that they appear when they're written. If you have a book and it says written by Nava and like Lorenzo Nava and Sarah Yonke, you don't want to mix those up. You don't want to say, well, L comes first, I'm going to put L first. That's going to mess it up. You've got to do it exactly the same order that they're printed in. Otherwise, because that's how people are going to be able to search for it. So you do it order that the names are printed in, not alphabetical order. And then you're going to do the year of the publication. Key point here, so when you're doing multiple authors in the text like this, use an and sign. Don't write the word and when you're doing it in parentheses like that, because we're just trying, like I said, to keep things as short as possible so that we don't distract the reader from the point that we're trying to make. We don't want them to spend all of their energy trying to read our citations and not be able to get our message across. Now, if you cite this other way that we were talking about before, where it's kind of in the text, then we're not using symbols there. Then if you're going to do it that way, you have to write out the word and, because that's your own voice. That's where your kind of narrative and you're trying to make your own voice heard, and you don't want to be using symbols there. So if you do it this first way, use the and symbol. If you do it the second way, write out the word and. Now, let's say you have 3 or more sources, which is very common. They've actually simplified the way that you can do this now. So what you do is you write the name of the first author that's listed, and then you just write et al. After that. And that means, I don't remember what it means exactly. It's like and everyone or something in Latin. So, but basically you write the first name et al. So that people know there's 3 or more authors, the year of the publication, and that's it. You don't have to write all the different names of all the different people, at least in the text. Later on, we'll be able to list some of those people and give them credit. But for now, this is how we're going to do it. Now, a catch with this, let's say that you have 2 different articles that were written in the same year by the same, with the same first author. Like, let's say that one is Nava, Yankee, and Smith. And then you've got another one that's Nava, Begay, and Martinez. So then in this case, you want to write to where there's the first difference. And this is only if they're in the same year. If let's say that this one is 2019 and this one is 2021, then that's going to be how people tell these two apart. But if they were both the same year, if they're both 2021, then you want to write to the first point of difference. You'd say Nava, Yankee, et al. That way, people will be able to figure out, is it this one or this one that he's talking about? So hopefully you won't run into that in this class. I don't think we'll be doing too much citing, but if you ever do run into that problem, that's how you get around it. And so let's say you're writing something that's published by an organization. This is something that will almost certainly come up in this class. So let's say you cite something put out by the CDC or the Centers for Disease Control. I forgot to write the rest, and Prevention. So what you'll do is you have to write it out, write out the use the organization's name as the author. And remember, when you write an organization name, something long like that, and you want to use an abbreviation later or an acronym later, you've got to write it out the entire thing the first time. You've got to write out, say, American Heart Association, and then you can put AHA in parentheses like that afterward. For the CDC example here, because this is already in parentheses right there, what you can do is you can use brackets instead, just to show that you're shortening that. But you'll use the organization's name as the author. A big mistake that a lot of people do is they put the website as the author instead of the organization name. Don't do that. Put the name of the organization itself. Another thing that people will often do is if they use, say, WebMD for the source, they might write webmd.com 2021. But most of those articles on WebMD have somebody who wrote the article, and that will be listed right there on the page. And so what you want to do is you want to find the name of that person, and you want to cite it as that person as the author, not webmd.com or whatever, prevention.com, something like that. Cite the actual person who wrote it. But for a lot of these organizations, sometimes they don't list the individual author, and so then just cite the organization. Now, that's how you're going to cite things in papers. If you're ever doing a presentation, which you're not going to have to necessarily do for this class, but if you do one, if you do a PowerPoint presentation for something else, what you do is you just put your source just like you would in the text, but you're going to put it as a footer at the bottom of the slide. Don't put it after every bullet, because that fills up your bullets or fills up your slide with a lot of citations. This is one part or one area where it's okay to just kind of bunch all of your sources from one slide together at the very bottom. And so we talked about how to cite things in the text. And in the text, the rule is we want to keep it short and sweet and not distract the reader. We want to give them the basic information about where we got that information from. Now, in the reference list, we're going to give them more information. So if somebody decides that they want to go and find out where that source was and look at the original information, they have the information to do that. So that's the entire reason of why we're going to make the reference list why it is so that we give people enough information that they can go and find whatever it was that we wrote. And so where you're going to put your reference list, if you're writing a paper, it's going to be at the very end. It's going to be your last page. Your paper has a page dedicated to the reference list. So you're going to make an entirely new page. You'll write references at the top, and then you're going to list them out right after that. If it's on a presentation, then you're gonna do the same thing, but it's going to be your last slide is your references. So you're going to make a brand new slide. You'll title it references again, and you'll put them all down at the end. Now, for discussion posts, you don't want to make a whole new post for your references. So, and this goes for journaling as well, if you use a reference in there. So just at the very end of your journal, you've got your post or whatever written there. And then at the end, write references, and then just list them out right after that. That's, put them at the end. That way it's not getting in the way of everything else. Now with references, if you have more than one, you're going to be listing these alphabetically according to the last name of the first author. So let's say that we've got somebody, Nava is one of them, the CDC is another, Yankee is another person. And so you don't want to just write them, like that. You want to put it in alphabetical order. So you're going to move Nava down, you're going to move CDC up, and you're going to move Yankee kind of in the middle there. So that's how you want to be organizing your reference list, not by date, not by anything else, by the last name. Okay, so how do we cite sources? This is kind of an overview of how to do it. I'm going to actually go through and give you examples specifically on how to do these, but you can use these slides for references. And so, this is going to talk about how to cite authors, articles, online sources, and we're going to do an example for each of these. So let's start with a book. So first thing you're going to want to do, you're going to look at who your authors are. And for us right here, these are our authors. We have Sue Huther, Catherine McCants, and Valentina Brashers. So notice where these are going to go is right here at the beginning. We're going to start out with authors, and we're going to put the last name and the first initial. Don't write out the whole first name. Don't write out what their title is. Don't write out anything else. Just the last name, first initial. That's it. No one else gets any information beyond that. Next thing you're going to put is the year that the source was published. And so if you're using your textbook, by the way, you can just copy and paste this and use it for your textbook. If you're citing your textbook, just do it exactly like this. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go through, usually if it's an online book, it'll be in this copyright information. If it's a hard copy of a book, usually it's inside the cover or within the first few pages, you'll see this copyright information here. And what you're going to look for is the year that it's copyrighted or the year that it's published. And that's going to go right down there so that you can, that's pretty much where it's going to go. Next thing, we're going to look at the title here. So we've got our title. Make that a little red on red wasn't a great idea. So here's our title. And then the title you're going to put right after that. And if it's an edition, 7th edition, as you can see here, you're going to want to put that one in there. So write the title. Now with books, the title is going to be in italics. So make sure that you put it that way. That's not something that I care too much about because as long as I have the title, I can go back and find where you got that information, what book you used. But if you want to be, perfect for other classes where you might have to write papers and they're going to grade you harder on your APA, do italics. And so I'll give you guys feedback on things like that. But as long as I can figure out where you got the information from, I'll be pretty soft on my APA grading. And then the last thing that you need to do when you do a book, a printed book or publication like that, you need to say where it was published. Don't ask me why that's important, but that's the proper format that people do. So you can see here in the copyright information, published in St. Louis, Missouri. And so, so that's exactly what you're going to put right down there. Published in St. Louis, Missouri, and who published it. It was published by Elsevier. So, so that's how you're going to cite a book. And like I said, you can copy and paste this citation here for any time that you cite the book in this class. But in other classes, when you're citing other books, that's how you're going to want to do it. And if you're citing this in the text, so just like we talked about, we're not going to, since this book has more than three authors, we're just going to write Huther et al. And then the year that it was published, 2020. That's all you're going to write when you put it in the text itself. And then later on at the end, you put extra information so people can go back and find it. Let's figure out how to cite an article. Now, these can get a little bit tricky to find all of the information. So sometimes different articles publish things in different styles, and so it's harder to find all of the information, but we'll try to go through how to do it. So first off, we find our authors here. So just like I was saying, you're going to list the authors by last name and first initial only. Notice I don't put any titles. I don't care who's got an MPH or has a PhD or anything like that. It's last name and first name only. That's it. And I do it exactly the order that the authors' names appeared in. So Nava was first, Nava's first down here, Zambrano's second, Zambrano's second, Arviso. So that's how we're going to do it there. Again, next thing we're going to look for is when what year it was published. So here we see published in August 2015. So here it's great. We have the specific day, specific month. If you want to put that, that's okay. For articles, usually the year is sufficient, but for websites, as we're going to look at next, you do want to include as much information as you can. So you'd put the day and month, but here just the year is okay. Next thing we're going to do, so title, and that's going to be right there after that. So we've got our title, and notice when we do the title of a journal article, the title is not in italics. The title is just in regular font. But right after that, we're going to put which article we got this out of. We don't want to just put the title because sometimes there can be titles that are the same, but they were published in different articles, and so or in different journals. So our next thing that we're going to list is going to be the journal. So what journal did we get this out of? This this particular one came from the Journal of Clinical Nursing. So we're going to write the Journal of Clinical Nursing right down there. Something a lot of people are tempted to do, because this is how a lot of websites do it, is the website might say JCN. And so people will write just JCN there, which you don't want to do, because it makes it harder for the reader to find it. So it's just not the way to go about it. Make sure that you write out the entire journal name. This can be tough because sometimes it'll be like, something like MJ of Clin Pre, and it's like, what does that mean? So what you can do if you see something like this cited somewhere, just copy and paste that into Google and search for it, and it'll bring up the full name of the journal article. That way, what you need to be putting in that area down there. So in this case, it's the Journal of Clinical Nursing. Don't shorten it. Don't write JCN. Write out the whole thing. Now, this next part can be a little bit tricky, and I think we're moving away from it because we're doing more of like the digital articles and things like that. But that's going to be the volume, the page number, all of that information here. So the way that you want to do that, to do it properly, you write the volume. So the volume is first here. The volume is still going to be in italics, and then in parentheses, you're going to write the issue number. I'll change colors for that. So the issue number, and that's going to come in parentheses right after the volume. And then the last thing that you're going to put is going to be the page numbers. And so the pages, you're going to put that right down there afterwards. So we've got the volume number, the issue number, and the page number. This was more important back when journals were printed on paper only. And so if you wanted to know where to find it, it wasn't enough to just know the Journal of Clinical Nursing, because they had hundreds of issues that you had to go through. And so you would want people to know, the volume is usually there's a new volume each year, and then you can figure out which issue in that year it was in, and then what page. So this made it easier for people to find things without having to look through every single copy of that journal that came out. When there's a new copy every month, that's quite a lot. Now we've got this digital object identifier, which, and this page is all marked up. Let me find another color that'll really pop. So there we have this DOI, and what we can do is we can just list that at the end. And that makes it easier for somebody who's looking on one of these databases online to just go to that DOI site, and they'll be able to find it much more easily and not have to be searching through all these different paper articles. So we'll probably, we're moving more and more to this sort of thing. So that's a good one to include. But in the old days, this was a little bit more important there. So that's how you do a journal article. Big thing to remember, and big mistakes that people make is they put in all these titles and spell out first names and all of that. Don't do that. Keep it short, just last name, first initial, and that's it. Now, the last thing, and this is something that I'm sure is going to come up quite a bit, how to cite a website. So the way that we're going to do this is going to be, so first off, if you go to a website, look for the title of the website, the title of the article that you're looking for, and that's going to be one of the things you want to identify. Second thing you're going to want to identify is, where did this come from? Who wrote it? Now, like I said, in this case, there's no author listed. This one came from the CDC. And that's not up here, but it should, it says like cdc.com or something up above. I think I cut that off. And so, not com, obviously gov. And so what you'd want to do is you're going to write that source, and you're going to say, okay, this was written by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's who I'm going to list as an author. Now, if it said written by so-and-so, Dave at the Centers for CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, then you would put Dave as the author, not the CDC. But since we don't have that, we're going to write the CDC as our author here. Next thing you're going to want to do for websites, look at when it was published. So this particular website was published or was last updated September 21st. So you want to write the last time this was updated, and that's the date that you're going to put as the publication date here. So date was updated September 21st. We're going to write it just like that, 2021, September 1st. And now with websites, the next thing, we've already identified the title here. So that's going to go down there. We're going to write out, vaccines for COVID-19. That's the title of the website or the title of the article on the website. That's what we're going to put for the title of whatever it is. And then last thing we can do, so many websites will not have that digital object identifier. That's usually going to be more journal articles, sometimes textbooks. So what we want to do is we want to look at the actual website. Now, don't just write cdc.gov because then your reader is going to have to go through the entire CDC website and look for this specific page. Copy and paste the exact page where you got this information from, and then you're going to put that right down there on your citation. So that's how you're going to cite a website. Like I said, what you don't want to do, and a big mistake that a lot of people make, is when they cite a website, they see this. And so here, instead of CDC, they write vaccines for COVID-19 as the author, and then 2021. And that's, a lot of times you can't even figure out where that information came from. So don't do that. Make sure that you're saying who wrote that information. And so that's why here it's going to be the CDC as well. And then you'll put the title of the actual page there at the end. Now, let me see. I'll bring up a new page here. So I'm just going to kind of scribble over this so that I can give you guys an example of how you might cite something that comes up in a class. So let's say that there was something in one of my presentations, a lecture, something like that, that you want to cite in your discussion post. Then what you can do, give me 1 second. Okay, so here's a way to look at that. So this is a really good website. If you look for this, Purdue OWL APA website, they're going to show you how to cite all of these different things here. So let's say that you're citing a presentation, and you can do this for my own presentations, since you can't necessarily put a link to them. But if you want to cite a presentation, a lecture, something like that, you're going to put the name of the person there. So, contribute here, it would be like Nava L, the year, date, month that presentation was given. And then you'll list the title. So, say you got something from the PowerPoint in chapter 2. What I would do, I'd say Nava L, just write the day that you got it, or that it was posted. Write, chapter 2 PowerPoint presentation. This isn't going to be perfect. It's always a little tricky to do these. And then, that's probably going to be sufficient for my class. If you're doing one of the videos, you could always put in the time stamp of where you got it. This gets a little bit tricky, and you're probably not going to want to cite this way on a paper, but for discussion posts, that's going to be okay. So if you're citing something from my class, and you want to put that in your discussion post, this is going to be the way to do it. Let me switch to my other view here. So give this 1 second to get back. Okay, so if if it was something from this class, what you do is say Nava L, and you can say 2022. Now we're in say chapter 2 lecture. If it's in one of the specific topics, you can list which topic. Say like we'll say cancer epidemiology, and that's just one of the videos you guys will get later, and it was at 2:34, or you could write slide number 13. It's going to be different because I think the slides that I have are a little bit different than the ones that are uploaded for you guys to take notes on. So, that's it. That's okay for my class. I probably don't want you to go and cite, some lecture that you had somewhere else, because it's going to be hard for me to verify that information. So in general, you want to avoid this kind of citation that somebody can't go and verify. But for this class, it's going to be okay. At least if you're citing me or our lectures. So I hope that makes sense for everyone. I hope that you feel a little bit more comfortable with your APA and doing that for this class and for future classes. Like I said, I'll give you feedback to kind of coach you on it. But as long as I can figure out where you got the information from, I'm okay with it. But I want to make sure that for future classes, you guys, don't have any problems with APA going forward. So let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to hearing from you.